Hello and welcome back to this final episode of Building a Tenor Guitar. In this video, I'll show you how to replace the guitar strings, explain about the tuning of the tenor guitar, and give you a demo of how it sounds. Before I show you how to change the strings, I'd like to explain about the tuning of the tenor guitar and how I chose a particular tuning for this guitar. A tenor guitar has 4 strings and is tuned in fifths, which means each successive string is tuned 5 steps apart. So in the old do, re, mi song, from one string to the next, it would go do, re, mi, fa, so, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each string is this many notes apart. So do, re, mi, fa, so, do, re, mi, fa, so, do, re, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 steps apart. This fifths tuning is the same as for a violin or a mandolin. Typically, a tenor guitar is tuned to the key of C, so the strings would be tuned to C, G, D, A, but I've chosen to tune this guitar to the key of G. So the strings are tuned G, D, A, E. So that's a G, D, A, E. I did this so it would be in the same key as the mandolin, which I play. And I'll show you that on a mandolin. So here's a little flat top mandolin, and it's tuned the same way. So they're both tuned the same way. The main reason I built the tenor guitar was because I could already play the mandolin, and the fingering for the tenor guitar would be the same as the mandolin. I also have quite a bit of mandolin music that would be in the same key as for the tenor guitar. The one difference in tuning between the mandolin and the tenor guitar is that because the tenor guitar has a longer scale length, you can see here from the saddle up to the nut, from the saddle up to the nut of the mandolin is much shorter. The tenor guitar is tuned an octave lower than the mandolin, so you can hear the low G on the mandolin and the low G on the tenor guitar. They're 1 octave apart. There is an instrument called an octave mandolin, which is tuned exactly like a mandolin, G, D, A, E, and is 1 octave lower than the mandolin. So the tenor guitar is actually tuned to the same key and in the same octave as a octave mandolin. Next, I'd like to describe how I chose the strings for the tenor guitar. And there are strings that are commercially available for the tenor guitar. Typically, they are of the gauge for a tenor guitar tuned to C, and as I said before, I tuned this one to G, so I needed to use a little different sized strings than what's readily available for the tenor guitar. So to do that, I just bought some normal strings for a 6-string acoustic guitar, and I simply selected the 4 strings out of the 6 that were the closest to the tuning that I wanted for the tenor guitar. So for the G string, I chose the 5th string from a 6-string guitar, which is tuned to A. Mine is tuned to G, so that's pretty close for the gauge of the string. For the D string, I used the 4th string from a 6-string guitar, which is tuned to D, same as the tenor guitar. For the A string, I used the 2nd string from a 6-string guitar, which is tuned to B on the acoustic guitar. It's tuned to A on this guitar. And for the E string, I used the 1st string from an acoustic guitar, which is also tuned to E. The set of strings I used are extra light gauge. The lighter the gauge, the smaller the string diameter is, and the less tension there is on the string. So a lighter gauge is easier to play, easier to depress the strings onto the frets, but they might not give you the tone that you want because the tension is lower. I've had on this guitar that the A and E strings sound good, so here's the A and the E. But I think the G and the D are a little bit too low in tension. They don't sound bad, but because they're so low in tension, the strings want to move back and forth almost too easily, moved back and forth. So when I'm playing, sometimes it'll cause the key to be sharp. So if I'm playing this note, and if I would push to the side, it's called bending a string, and you do that in playing sometimes, but I'm kind of doing it unintentionally with this one. So I want to replace the G string and the D string with a different set of strings. As I said, this set that's on here is an extra light gauge, and I'm going to replace them with the G and the D with a custom light gauge. And the difference between the two are that the strings are just slightly larger diameter, and they have slightly more tension on them. And I'm hoping that that tension will cause less of that side movement to the strings and give a little bit better tone to the guitar. So as I said in the last video, I wanted to show you how to install strings. I will show you how to replace strings. I'll replace the G and the D strings on this guitar to show you that. Okay, to start, when I replace strings, I like to do them one at a time. I don't like the idea of removing all the strings from the guitar at once, because that would remove all the tension from the guitar neck. And right now, these strings are under tension, so it's actually trying to bend the guitar up this way. If I took all these strings off, it would take all that tension out of the neck, and I just think that would cause stress on the guitar by releasing the tension all at once on that neck. So I'll just replace the strings one at a time, and when I replace the strings on a guitar or on my mandolin, I typically just do them one at a time. So I'll begin unwinding the string. This is a string winder. You necessarily don't need it, but they just come in handy a little bit if you change many strings. So I'll just start unwinding. So I'll just keep unwinding. Keep some tension on that string so I can unwind it. I'm watching the tuning machine right here. And that's far enough. So I'll get the string bent around. There it comes out. I want to hang on to the end of that string and not just kind of pop it out of there, because the string could fly off and it could scratch the headstock or scratch your guitar, and I don't want that to happen. Next, I got to remove the bridge pin, so I'll keep the string out of the way and then just start moving this pin, which is hard to do sometimes. It's just in there by friction. Okay, that one's pretty tight. So I wanted to move the camera over here a little bit closer so you can see what I'm doing. I just have a piece of wood, piece of oak that I'm going to get there. I just got it under the edge of that bridge pin so I could lift on it a little bit. I couldn't quite get my fingers under there, so that came out. And I'll just lift that, take that out, take the string out. So there's the bridge pin. You can see that groove in the pin. The string rides in that groove, and the ball gets trapped under the guitar top. So here's my old string Here's the string I'm replacing it with, and you probably can't really see any difference between those. There's really not a lot of difference visually between them, but looking at the specs on them, the old string was 39 thousandths of an inch in diameter, and the new string is 42 thousandths, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but the tension on the old string was 24.7 pounds, and on the new string is 28.9 pounds, so quite a bit more tension. And I'm hoping that tension translates into less side-to-side movement on the string, and also a little bit better tone. So now I'll show you how to replace the string. First of all, I'm going to put a little bend in that string. The reason that I do that is when I put this string in the guitar and it goes in that slot, I want that ball end to pull up against the bottom of the guitar top. If I left that just straight, there's a possibility that that ball could catch on the tip of that pin. I don't want that to happen. It's unlikely that would happen, but this just kind of ensures that it'll slide right past there. So I'm going to insert this string back into the bridge pinhole, and I'm going to do it so this bend is facing up towards the neck end of the guitar, like that. And also this slot in the pin has to correspond with the string. So I'll just start that down in there part of the way. Then I'm just going to pull that string up, put some tension on it. So now that ball end of the string is pressing against the underside of the guitar top. And actually, if you could look at the structure underneath here, I have the guitar top, and then there's another piece of wood glued to the bottom side of the top, just to give some extra reinforcement in this area and somewhere for those ball ends of the strings to bite into. Over the years, as that gets chewed up, it's a little bit of job, but you could actually replace that piece of wood underneath there if you needed to. So what I'll do here is just push that pin down, not real hard, but just so it's about the same height as these other pins. It's just a friction fit, and now when that string goes over the top of here, it just holds the ball end of that string in by friction. I'm going to get a close-up of this. This is what people call the tuner. Actually, it's a technical term. It's a tuning machine. As you can see, it's got this little spool right here, and there's a hole through the middle of it right there. So the string goes through that hole. So it goes through that hole right there, kind of like threading a needle. And I'm putting it through this way because when I tighten this up, this spool, I want it to tighten counterclockwise, kind of like this string is, and that's so it'll line up with the nut slot better. So you can see the string comes up this side of the spool and around that way, and this G string will come up into this slot and wind around the spool that way. If I wound it the opposite way, the string would be coming off the back side of this, and it wouldn't be in alignment with these nuts. So as you can see, the G and the D string are wound counterclockwise, so they come around both these tuning machines this way. The A and the E string are wrapped clockwise, so they come up and go around the tuning machines this way. So these two strings are kind of mirror images of these two in the way that they're wound around the tuning machines. I want to leave some slack in this string before I start winding it, just so I'll have a few winds around that tuning machine. It doesn't take a whole lot, but I usually go maybe a couple of inches above the fretboard with my fingers like this. and I want to lock this string onto the spool of the tuning machine, and because it's going to go counterclockwise. So I'm going to take this string, I'm going to bring it around. I'm taking this in under, so it's under, and then I'm going to pull up. So it's, bend that a little bit so it'll stay. See how that is? So that when I start winding this, I'll get this started. It's kind of hard to do. There. Start winding this. And that first revolution, okay, I'm going to stop right there. If I can turn this thing, see it or not. Yeah. See how that goes underneath and up through, so the end of this string is trapped under that first winding. Take this on around so the string won't slip. It's underneath itself. It's going to hold itself down. And see if I grab my winder here. Wind this up quickly, and it's a little awkward to do, trying to show you all this, and hold on to it and get it into the camera and get my fingers out. Okay, as I wind this, I'm making sure that my string, as the tension goes up, I got it into the nut slot. There we go. So let's see. Yeah, there's a good. I didn't do a great job because I'm trying to hold the camera and do all these things at the same time, but you kind of see how that string is underneath that first winding, and that string is locked on there. So I'm going to cut this string off eventually down close, and it's not going to slip on this spool. Put the electronic tuner on here. You see this needle right here. I want this to show a G here, and it's still flat. I want this needle to come up to the center point right there. That's how you change a string. The final thing I need to do is cut that string off. So here's the end. You can use, if you have some needle nose pliers, you could use those, or heavy nail clippers. This winder actually has a cutter built into it that's nice, because I can just run it down right against the top of that and clip it off. Actually, I'd like that a little bit closer, if at all possible. Let's see. There we go. So there's that string installed. I got this D string already loosened up a little bit, so I won't bother to show replacing this other string on camera, but I'll change it, and after I get that changed, I'll come back and give you a demo on the guitar. So I'd like to give you a little demo on how the guitar sounds, and I'm recording this off an iPhone, so the microphone is just straight off the phone. It's not that greatest quality, so. Tone. I'll do the harmonics. So that kind of shows you how good the tune is, and the tuning is, and how accurate the fretting is. When I installed the frets, the harmonics is actually this harmonic is physically halfway between the nut and the saddle, as is this fret. So you want the harmonic and then the fretted note to sound the same. So that's not bad. See if I can play a little bit of a song. I'll probably make some mistakes because I'm a little bit out of practice, but we'll see how it goes here.